There's a couple other ones, but anyway, so you finished OCS. You didn't get to pin. So how did you end up making the transition to becoming a black hat from there? Was it
So there was just a little bit of a need. So OCS is a broadening assignment to be on staff there. So if you're a guardsman and you don't know what a broadening assignment is, it's essentially like you signed up to do an MOS. Let's just say you're infantry, but you've been at it for 10 years and you're like, I just need a break. And it doesn't mean you want out of the guard. You just need to get out of that structure, that situation, whatever. So we have these things called broadening assignments, and there's a bunch of them. I've got friends that are on the shooting training teams in Oklahoma City. I've got friends that are part of the state safety team. And so, there's different ways to get out of your unit and go do something else while still completing your contract for the guard. And so OCS is one of those, but it's often people's last stop. So a lot of people go there to retire. And that's kind of what helped me is that somebody in the element, they were on their way out. Captain Steve Hudgens had just shown up. I think he beat me. We might have even, I don't remember exactly when he showed up, but he wasn't, he hadn't gone to his schools yet. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Monemeyer had just showed up. She actually joined us at Phase 3. They do all of your TAC qualifications 2 weeks before Phase 3 or a month before Phase 3. And so she had come up and joined us at that time. So there were some new faces showing up, and they still needed bodies. And it basically was a conversation with the commander, like, I don't really want to go back to the truck drivers. We kind of talked about that ability to problem solve. And honestly, there was a weight issue at the time, and I don't know what the current status is, but with these low numbers, the guard's not kicking people out, and so we're dealing with overweight soldiers and people just not staying to standard. And I just lived for 18 months in a thing where, like, everything was to the standard. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that, like, everyone doing the right thing, doing what's good for you and your buddy, and taking care of each other and just living the standards. And so I didn't really want to go back. So I just asked if I could kind of stay on, and they were like, well, yeah, I guess we do need, another body. And I'd gotten lucky. I think it was the 12 months before that, or maybe 6 months before that, they had lowered the requirement to be a black hat down to E6. So it was you had to be an E7, but they dropped it down to be an E6, which I was, and so it just kind of was a match made in heaven.
Good deal. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so Captain Hudgens and I went up and got all of our qualifications taken care of that summer, and so I went the summer of 19. Yeah, summer of 2019, I was a candidate at Phase 3 in Washington, and summer of 2020. I was a cadre at Phase 3 in Washington. So,
very cool.
Which led to some great conversations with the leadership up there. They actually offered us a job, offered to move my wife and I up there because they'd never seen someone do both parts so close together. And talking about, like, the ability to problem solve and just troubleshoot things. Like, look, this is what I was thinking here last year, and this year I can see why we had those weird doubts. Or, not that it was not a bad program. One of the best schools I've ever been to, in fact. It was wonderful. But, I mean, that's why we AAR, right? There's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, that was a super neat situation to be in, to transition from cadre to from a candidate to cadre in the same schoolhouse, like in sequential years or whatever.
Yeah, that's like a unicorn experience for you. I mean, I couldn't imagine being like it'd be like if you and me just said, "Hey, we're coming back up to basically teach." Like it's like, who the heck are you? It's like I just did this like 2 days ago.
Yeah. So it was able, it put me in a position to train, even those 2 weeks that I had those guys. I met some obviously officers that I still am in contact with today. Every time I'm in Washington, there's a lieutenant that, we got to go out and catch dinner, or at least run into each other on the training site, because I was at that place where I understood what they were going through. I understood what made it difficult, what I didn't understand about testing, what I didn't understand about the lanes, or I could explain all that to them, right? It was almost probably a cheat code for them, because you have a regular cadre. They don't teach you how to do that job. They give you a paper and say they got to fit the paper, and everything else is on you. So they don't generally train you. And I'm not saying there aren't good ones. Please don't take this wrong. There's some of them that are fantastic, but a lot of them are just flying by the seat of their pants. And so when you get to testing date, they're like, well, I don't know what. I mean, when you're taking your practice lanes, they're doing their first practice lanes. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that wasn't me. So I was teaching them from day one, like, here's what you need to focus on. Here's where we're going to lay the weight on certain, check the boxes. These are okay to miss. These do not miss. And so we kind of walked through, and I could train them exactly what I'd just been through to get a go. And it showed. I think we had the officer of the cycle, the company, whatever. We had like 4 of
All
those
the
in a row.
awards.
So we
Yeah.
had from the guy who got the sword down. We took the whole company, platoon, squad. Everything was my squad, which was neat for me, but really just showed that they showed up ready to train.
Absolutely.
And that unicorn situation worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
There might be something to it, even like start bringing people back and letting them be a cadre.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, even back in World War II, I swear, like that. Who was that kid? The youngest Medal of Honor winner.
I can't remember.
The guys, even if like his wife tried to murder him later on in his life or whatever, but that's what he did. Like he graduated and was like, oh no, never mind. I'm thinking of the guy that held Bear Stone and held back the SS for about 13 hours. That's prevented them, but he was a machine gun squad teacher, and they just go, "You're just going to teach lanes and stuff," and he was like, "But I want to be on the front lines." He goes, "Well, you're really good at this," so it's like,
right.
They need to bring some of that back instead of just throwing people into. Yeah, but I feel like that's what it is. It's like what you're talking about. It's like people go there to retire, kind of thing. It's like, I'll just do this because it'll be fun, and whether or not I understand what it is we're teaching, or maybe I do, but it's been a long time since I instructed. But it's like coaching, it's like that's why a lot of Tier 1 athletes, they don't make good coaches because I don't know, I just do it, I just know how to do it versus someone who understands the game. It's like, no, if you want to be good, you need to chop your feet this way and turn your hips this way. And it's like, oh, okay, now I get what you're talking about. Now it's all making sense, So you're right. I mean, your coaching comes in really well there, especially for that OCS environment. And but yeah, I think that how it went down in because you could see the cadre that were just did not know kind of what was going on while you were out there. So, but yeah, a unique experience for you in that you just jumped right in right after you got done being a part of the OCS program. So speaking of OCS and what it's like being on one side, so we're relating to you really well on this side. That's like, hey, yeah, we all went to OCS and everything was done to the standard, and whether or not the standard made sense, you're just like just make sure you get it done. We got to get it done that way. What's it like being on the opposite side? Like, what is because to us, it just all seems like chaos. It's like, you guys figure. It's like you guys just throw us a bunch of here are your 5 items. Get this stuff taken care of, and if it doesn't look good, you're going to be punished accordingly for it. So what's it like being on the other side? Like, what's that chaos look like?
The thing that I don't say we can't tell you, but we can't make you understand as a cadre at OCS is that it is not like any other school. So in any other school, we're going to crawl, walk, run you, right? So I'm going to if I have to teach you how to shoot a machine gun, we're going to go a crawl phase. We're going to break it all down. Barney style. We're going to teach you all the specifics. Then we're going to walk. So now I'm going to watch you do it in a controlled environment, and you're going to go out and do that. And now we're going to run, where it's like, all right, we're on the range, time to run, right? Whether that's mounted, dismounted, whatever. At OCS, there's no crawl, walk, run. I gave you the book. I gave you your original op order that tells you every single thing you're going to do for this entire class. The expectation is you read that, and now you know every single thing you're going to do this for entire class. I gave you the standards and the guidelines and how rooms ought to be set up, what reporting is like. It's right. You have your OC guide, you have op orders, you have whatever. There's no crawl phase. I don't walk you through the book. I don't walk you through the op order and say, does everyone understand that on these dates you're going to do this? No, that's not for me. This is a leadership school. You got to be able to take in way too much information that some shitty leader gave you, process it, and now spit it back out to your Joes in something they can understand and execute. That's OCS. Mm-hmm. From day one to the very last day, no matter what, that's OCS. Mm-hmm. And so it is a little bit weird school because you show up and you're getting corrected. If maybe your uniforms aren't right. Like every class, it was always like their flick wasn't dress right dress. Well, it tells you in your standards, in your OC guide, exactly where the tape goes. Excuse me. Exactly how wide that strip of tape is supposed to be, what color it's supposed to be, how you're supposed to write your name, initials, whatever on, right? Everything is detailed for you, but people show up and go, oh, I'm supposed to put some tape on here. So they do, and then everyone does it by themselves, right? And I'm sure y'all went through that in your class as well. We were like, And I think I was a little nicer on y'all's class because I had just seen it like 5 classes in a row. Like, all right, I'm tired of smoking kids for this stupid thing. So I tried to do a little bit more of the crawl, walk, run by the time y'all's class came around. But, you know, in the beginning, it was like one of y'all is not like the other. Go outside and do 100 push-ups. You have 5 minutes to correct it. Get back in here and we'll do another, you know, inspection. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be. We're turning the temperature up because leadership isn't easy. Making decisions isn't easy. You don't always have all the information. You know, I think I operate on like a 70% of the information rule. Like, you give me 70% of what I need to know, we're going to make a decision one way or the other. I just want to make sure I'm going north and not south if I need to be going a certain direction, right?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what it is just you're expected to read the standard, follow the standard from the beginning, regardless of what you don't understand. And when you don't, you have to have the gumption to reach out to someone above you and go, I have an RFI. I don't understand what this means. I'm here to communicate. But we all know at the schoolhouse, y'all showed up because I did. In 6-4, we did the same thing. We showed up expecting to have our hands held for a couple months.
Yep.
And then there to be like this breaking in period. And then, okay, now we'll take over and we'll take the reins. No, you're graded from month number 1. Like it doesn't, there's no crawl, walk, run. So that's the hardest part to get across to candidates. And it's the part that some cadre obviously can go overboard with. There has to be that mentorship, but it's not in the beginning. The mentorship usually starts around January timeline where I'm like, okay, you've shown that you can read and follow and abide by these standards. Now let's show you, not say how to bend them, but how do we make that fit within the real world, right? We all know that real life happens in the gray. It's not black and white. In the Army, the government tries to be black and white, but it's just not, that's not how things work. That's why we make SOPs.
Yep.
That then will take the place of a standard, right? I mean, even in room inspections, right? That's the first one in OCS. I was like, what if we just write it up different? And in my class, we did that and got away with it. The next class never figured that out. And then by like a second or third class of being cadre, it's like, all right, listen, guys, just write an SOP. Like you don't have to go by everything we gave you. Hey, look, we can't make that fit because that's built for an OCS locker room. You know, where it's a full bay. We don't have that here. So since that is already out the window, we rewrote it like this. And then if you can take that in leadership and do it with everything. So if it's running a range, if it's loading a bus, if it's, you know, your 30, 60, 90, 120s, whatever it is, we make it fit to real life. But that's what we're trying to do as a cadre at OCS. So looking from the candidate side where you're just getting told what to do and you're doing a lot of push-ups for no reason. And then when I flipped hats and I was like, okay, we have to be kind of terrorists because I don't want to say terrorists. That's probably a terrible word. We have to be a terror to you, which I guess, you know, in the word, but, cause we got to apply that pressure because I can't shoot at you. I can't physically harm you. I've got to do something to make sure that you're going, if I don't make a decision, this is about to suck.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And the way I described it in the phase 2 video, like I just said, it's the wake up call. Cause you get through with phase 1, you're like, man, phase 1 sucks. So like you just sit there and it is a constant just punch in the face of just getting smoked, getting corrective training, going out and just doing the worst stuff. And then it chills out when you get to do the land nav part. And then you survive that and you finish whatever other corrective training they have you do, returning all your weapons. Just like, oh my God, we made it. And you get to see Major Queton. He's like, good job, guys. You did it. You know? And you're like, all right, we're going home. And then you start for phase 1 and you're sitting there and you're just waiting.
Phase 2.
You're just phase 2. So you're just standing in formation. Like, we were supposed to be here at this time. And all of a sudden, you know, you just see, here comes the black hat. You're like, I don't recognize this person. I don't know this person. And you're just like, oh, well, it's going to be fine because we got through the hard part. And then like phase 2, it's like, nope, not at all. Part. Welcome. Guess what, guys? And I said, it's the wake up call because that's why I tell everyone I call phase 2 the wake up call because you think you got through the hard part. And, you know, again, it is technically true. You got through the hardest part of where that knocks out most candidates. But phase 2, it's welcome to it. And you're in charge. And, you know, the way you described it, it's just perfect. You know, there is no crawl. It's just, we're not going to hold your hand. Here's what you're supposed to do. If you don't do it right, it's going to suck.
There's consequences, right? You know, phase 1, the only interaction before I went to phase 1, the only interaction I'd had with it was a really good NCO. He was one of my, like I was his squad leader. He was my team leader. And he had talked about OCS and how it was just a smoke fest. He said it was stupid. I quit after like 5 days. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And that's kind of the mentality I went to it with when I got there. And I realized pretty quick, it's just a war of attrition.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that, like, when you want a leader, you can't have someone that quits
Mm-hmm.
in 5 days or in 3 days or in 1 day. I mean, I've seen somebody stand up in the very first
Smoke session, yeah.
and they're done, right? You can't. That's mentally weak or physically weak, and that's not what we want leaders to be. We all have different types, but there is a standard, and you have to have leaders a certain deal, a standard. So that's what phase 1 is.
Yep.
100%. It is anyone who can't just go do hard stuff for 14 days
Mm-hmm.
should not be an officer in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people would agree. Probably not those people who stood up and quit, but the rest of us, we all agree. And then phase 2 starts that way to remind you that this is a very standardized house. You will not live here if you do not play by the rules. But then we start the mental challenge, right? So now it's all the products that you have to have prepared every month, and you find people that are lazy. Like, I've seen people get kicked out for lying. I've seen people get kicked out for just not doing their job, just because they were lazy. They thought that it was regular National Guard, where I don't do Army stuff until you start paying me. And we all know it's not. It's just not leadership in the Guard. You talked about your leadership text is still blowing up, right? I've spent, let's see, we had drill 10, 11, 12 of this month of January. And since then, I've probably spent 3.5 full days just dealing with Army stuff. Now, I'm a newer platoon sergeant. I'm still trying to get my administrative side in check because, once again, guys, there's no one that teaches you that. Mm-hmm. No one takes you and says, hey, here's the perfect administrative document to run your platoon. That's not real. It doesn't happen. That's why we teach you in OCS, like, make stuff up. Figure out what you need to make life easier. Create that document, that asset, whatever it is. Utilize it and then pass it on to people, because that's not in the real world. So I'm still dealing with that right now, right? Trying to get a platoon in shape, trying to get the administrative side of the house in shape. So you don't just work as a leader when you put the uniform on and go show up for a weekend. It's not feasible.
No, yeah, absolutely not. It's definitely outside. I mean, I'm still working and submitting draws and all kinds of stuff. I'm working on my 30, 90-day plan. The leader just say, hey, you need to have this stuff submitted, and then the admin sergeant be like, you didn't do this right. And I was like, perfect.
Right.
It's like, thanks.
It's good to have those QAQCs, right? We need people that check on us and make sure we're doing things right, because although there's one standard, there's a million standards.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so we love those guys.
Absolutely, yeah. And it is, OCS did a great job specifically phase 2 for that stuff. I mean, we had to create our own draws. We had to go in and submit memos and SOPs. It's like that's what it is. Like, that's the job that you do outside. It's the not sexy stuff. It's like everyone looks at the Army. You just see that 10%. Like, oh, they carry guns and they get to do. It's like, if only it were just that easy.
Yeah. No, it is it's two different worlds. We talked.